First contact. Commander Theron Rix stood aboard the bridge of the Celestial Vanguard, his crystalline eyes reflecting the holographic display of Earth. The massive vessel led the Nexus fleet, 15,000 ships strong, their hulls gleaming with bioorganic alloys that absorbed and redirected energy. Rix's scaled fingers traced the outline of the blue planet, a world that had spawned countless legends across the galaxy. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 100 conquered worlds. The bridge crew, each member of the proud Nexus species, worked with practiced efficiency at their neural link stations. First Officer Naraven approached, her silver-streaked scales catching the ambient light. "The primitive detection systems haven't noticed us yet, Commander. Their orbital stations are rudimentary at best." Rix nodded slowly, mandibles clicking in contemplation. The Nexus Empire had grown through conquest, absorbing or eliminating any civilization that refused to bow. Yet humans had remained an enigma, their isolation protected by stories of impossible victories and devastating counterattacks. "These humans," he mused, "have hidden behind their myths long enough. Show me their defenses." The holographic display shifted, highlighting Earth's visible military installations, scattered satellites, crude weapon platforms, and a handful of space stations orbited the planet. Nothing that could challenge even a fraction of the Nexus fleet's power. Strategic Officer Zara Krell, her cybernetic enhancements pulsing with data streams, stepped forward. "Commander, our analysis suggests their technology is centuries behind ours. The legends must be fabrications, stories told by failed commanders to excuse their incompetence." Rix's inner eyelids narrowed. Perhaps they are simply clever at hiding their true strength. "Send the warning broadcast. Let's see how these myths respond to reality." The transmission burst forth in all human languages, carried on frequencies their primitive systems couldn't miss. "This is Commander Theron Rix of the Nexus fleet. Your world stands before the might of the Empire. Surrender now, and your species will be granted the honor of serving the subjects. Resist, and we will reduce your civilization to ash." Minutes passed in tense silence. The bridge crew exchanged glances, some allowing themselves small smirks at the humans' apparent fear. Then a single response cut through their communications, delivered in a calm, measured voice. "This is Admiral Rebecca Hawthorne of the Earth Defense Force. Your presence in this system is unauthorized. You have 1 hour to withdraw, or we will respond with appropriate force." Laughter rippled across the bridge. Rix himself allowed a cold smile to cross his scaled features. Brave words from a primitive species. Tactical. Analyze their broadcast. Find its origin point. Unable to locate the source, Commander, the tactical officer reported, confusion evident in his tone. "The signal. It seems to come from multiple points simultaneously." Rix dismissed the concern with a wave. "A simple trick. Nothing more. Deploy the fleet in standard conquest formation. We'll show these humans the difference between legends and reality." As the Nexus fleet began its advance toward Earth, Rix couldn't shake a nagging sensation in his warrior's instincts. The humans' response had carried no fear, no desperation. Only certainty. "Commander," Naira interrupted his thoughts, "we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from Mars' orbit. Interference from their primitive equipment, nothing more," Rix declared. "Continue the advance. Today we'll prove that humans are no different from any other species that dared to resist the Empire." The massive fleet moved forward, their formation perfect, their weapons primed. None of them noticed the subtle shifts in the asteroid belt, or the way certain stars seemed to flicker oddly in the void. The myths of humanity were about to be tested against the reality of the Nexus fleet's power, and Commander Theron Rix was certain of his victory. He had no way of knowing that his certainty was exactly what humanity had counted on. Hidden defenses, multiple contacts emerging. Zara Krell's cybernetics flashed urgently as she processed the sensor data. Commander Rix leaned forward on the Celestial Vanguard's bridge, his crystalline eyes narrowing at the holographic display. From the seemingly empty void around Mars, ships materialized like ghosts stepping through a veil. Not the crude vessels the Nexus fleet had expected, but sleek warships with hulls that seemed to drink in light itself. Their emergence was silent, methodical, and terrifyingly precise. "Impossible," Naira Van whispered, her silver scales dulling with fear. "Their technology. It's beyond anything our scouts reported." Before Rix could respond, the first human strike hit. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through the Nexus fleet's outer defense screen, cutting 3 cruisers in half with surgical precision. The ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, their atomic bonds severed by weapons that defied known physics. "Return fire," Rix roared, his composure cracking. "All ships, concentrate on their lead vessels." The Nexus fleet's bioorganic weapons blazed, filling space with destructive energy. But their targets seemed to shift and fade, the human vessels moving with impossible agility. Each shot that should have struck true instead passed through empty space. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through their communications again, as calm as before. "This is your final warning, Commander Rix. Withdraw now. The Nexus Empire does not retreat," Rix snarled. "Deploy the Worldbreaker missiles. Let's see how their stealth technology handles pure destruction." Massive missile batteries opened across the fleet, launching thousands of antimatter warheads. The weapons streaked toward the human formations, each capable of devastating a small moon. Yet as they approached their targets, something extraordinary happened. Invisible fields flickered into existence, catching the missiles in mid-flight. The warheads hung suspended for a moment, then vanished into subspace pockets that closed as quickly as they had appeared. "Commander," Zara reported, her voice shaking, "they didn't destroy our missiles. They stored them somewhere." A new wave of human ships emerged, this time from Saturn's rings. They moved in perfect coordination with the Mars group, forming a deadly web around the Nexus fleet. Rix watched in growing horror as his supposedly invincible armada was systematically carved apart by an enemy that seemed to understand warfare on a fundamentally different level. "Fall back to defensive positions," he ordered, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was too late. The humans had predicted this too. Hidden platforms in the asteroid belt activated, launching gravitational anchors that trapped the Nexus ships in place. "We've lost 30% of the fleet," Naira reported, her professional demeanor cracking. "Their attacks, they're not random. They're dismantling us piece by piece, targeting command ships, supply lines, communication nodes." Rix slammed his scaled fist against the command console. The myths hadn't been exaggerations, they had been warnings. Every story about human military prowess, every legend about their technological superiority had been an attempt to prevent this very scenario. "Commander," Zara's voice cut through his thoughts, "we're detecting massive energy buildup from Earth's moon." "Something is." The lunar surface cracked open, revealing a weapon array larger than most cities. As it charged, the very fabric of space began to distort around it. Rick stared at the display, finally understanding the true meaning of fear. They hadn't found a primitive civilization hiding behind legends. They had awakened a giant that had been patiently waiting, watching, and preparing. The myths hadn't done justice to the reality of humanity's power. And now, as the lunar weapon prepared to fire, Commander Theron Rix realized that his great fleet was about to become part of those legends, as a cautionary tale of hubris in the face of genuine superiority. Battle for Mars. The Martian defense grid activated in full, transforming the red planet into a fortress. Commander Rix watched from the battered bridge of the Celestial Vanguard as massive weapon platforms emerged from beneath the rust-colored sands, each bearing technology that made his fleet's armaments look primitive by comparison. "They've been preparing for centuries," Zara Krell observed, her cybernetics struggling to process the sheer scale of human military infrastructure. "Mars isn't just a colony. It's an entire planetary weapons platform. Rix's response was cut short as another wave of precision strikes decimated his fleet's right flank. The humans weren't just fighting. They were conducting a symphony of destruction, each movement calculated for maximum effect. New contact, Naira Van shouted. Massive energy signature emerging from Phobos. The Martian moon's surface split apart, revealing what had been hiding beneath its cratered exterior. A cannon of impossible proportions extended from the moonlet's core, its barrel longer than most battleships. Before anyone could react, it fired. A beam of concentrated dark matter lanced through space, cutting through the Nexus fleet's formation like a scythe through grain. 20 ships vanished instantly, their matter scattered across dimensions. The survivors scattered in panic, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos. Launch everything we have at that weapon, Rix commanded, his voice hoarse with desperation. All ships, concentrate fire on Phobos. The Nexus fleet responded, unleashing their full arsenal at the Martian moon. But as their weapons approached, they encountered layers of defensive shields unlike anything they'd ever seen. Each blast was absorbed, redirected, or simply ceased to exist. Admiral Hawthorne's voice returned, still maddeningly calm. Your weapons are advanced, Commander, but you're fighting with tools we discarded generations ago. Stand down. From the asteroid belt, another human fleet emerged. These ships were different, smaller, faster, designed for close-quarter combat. They dove into the Nexus formation like predators among prey, their weapons bypassing shields to strike directly at critical systems. We've lost contact with the entire third battle group, Naira reported, her scales now pale with fear. The humans, they're not just defeating us. They're taking us apart, studying our weaknesses with each attack. Rick stared at the tactical display, watching as centuries of Nexus military doctrine crumbled before human ingenuity. Every countermeasure, every tactic his fleet attempted, was met with an overwhelming response that seemed prepared long in advance. Commander, Zara interrupted, we're detecting quantum entanglement signatures throughout the system. The human ships, they're all connected somehow, sharing information and responding as a single entity. The realization hit Rix like a physical blow. The legends hadn't mentioned this because no one had survived long enough to understand it. Humanity hadn't just advanced beyond the Nexus Empire technologically. They had evolved warfare into an art form. As the Phobos cannon prepared for another shot, and the human fleets continued their methodical dismantling of his forces, Commander Theron Rix faced a truth that would reshape galactic politics. The Nexus Empire hadn't found a primitive civilization to conquer. They had challenged the masters of war themselves, and the price of that mistake was becoming clearer with each passing moment. Breaking point. The Celestial Vanguard's command deck fell silent as the holographic display updated. 2/3 of the once mighty Nexus fleet drifted as debris across the solar system. Commander Rix's scaled hands gripped his command chair, crystalline eyes fixed on the approaching human forces. Deploy the Void Breakers, he ordered. The fleet's most devastating weapons, reality-warping devices that could tear holes in space-time, launched toward the human formations. For a moment, hope flickered in the hearts of the Nexus crew. That hope died as the weapons simply vanished. No explosion, no effect, just gone. Quantum deletion fields, Zara Krell reported, her cybernetics pulsing erratically. They're not just intercepting our weapons, they're erasing them from existence. Space rippled as another human battle group emerged from Jupiter's orbit. These ships were different, massive constructs that seemed to bend light around them. As they approached, Rix watched in horror as they began to dismantle nearby Nexus vessels molecule by molecule. They're harvesting our technology, Naira Van realized. Every attack teaches them more about our capabilities. The humans' methodical dismantling of the Nexus fleet continued. Ships that tried to flee found their engines mysteriously offline. Communication arrays went dark. Weapon systems targeted their own vessels. The humans weren't just winning. They were conducting a masterclass in warfare. Commander, Zara's voice cracked. I'm detecting quantum signatures throughout the system. The debris from our destroyed ships. It's being collected, analyzed, and repurposed. Admiral Hawthorne's voice returned. Your technology is impressive, Commander Rix, but fundamentally flawed. We could have shared our understanding, had you come in peace. The Celestial Vanguard shuddered as another wave of human weapons struck. These weren't designed to destroy. They systematically disabled key systems, leaving the ships helpless but intact. They've been toying with us, Rix whispered. All this time, they've been holding back. A new hologram appeared on the bridge. A real-time display of Earth's defense network. Layer upon layer of technologies the Nexus Empire had never dreamed possible. Quantum barrier fields, temporal shields, gravitational manipulation arrays that could redirect entire fleets. This isn't a war, Naira said softly. This is a demonstration. As the remnants of his fleet drifted helplessly in space, Commander Theron Rix finally understood the true meaning of the legends. They weren't stories about humanity's strength. They were warnings about their mercy. And his fleet had just exhausted that mercy's limits. The last stand. Commander Rix ordered the remnants of the Nexus fleet into a spear formation. The Celestial Vanguard, its bioorganic hull scarred and failing, led the charge toward Earth. If we die today, he announced, we die striking at their heart. The human fleets parted, seemingly allowing them passage. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the silence. You still don't understand what you're facing, Commander. Earth's atmosphere shimmered as the planetary defense grid activated. Countless satellites, previously invisible to Nexus sensors, revealed themselves. The planet's magnetic field twisted, forming an impenetrable barrier of energy. Full power to weapons, Rix commanded. Launch the Genesis warheads. The fleet's doomsday weapons streaked toward Earth, each capable of reducing continents to ash. They never reached their target. The atmosphere itself reached out, tendrils of controlled plasma catching and dissolving the warheads. Impossible, Naira whispered. They've weaponized their entire magnetosphere. Humanity's response was devastating. The lunar cannon fired again, this time joined by weapons platforms across the solar system. Space itself seemed to bend as gravitational weapons tore ships apart. Quantum-linked projectiles phased through shields, striking with surgical precision. They're not even using their full capabilities, Zara realized, her cybernetics overloading from the data. This is mercy. The Celestial Vanguard's bridge shook as another volley struck. Emergency barriers failed. Life support systems flickered. Through the chaos, Admiral Hawthorne's final transmission reached them. Commander Rix, you've lost 2/3 of your fleet. Stand down, or we will demonstrate why the legends exist. Rix stared at Earth, its defenses now fully visible, a planet transformed into the most formidable fortress in known space. His mighty fleet, pride of the Nexus Empire, had been reduced to scattered remnants by an enemy that had spent centuries preparing for this moment. As the human fleets closed in for the kill, Rix finally understood. The legends hadn't been warnings about humanity's strength. They had been humanity's attempt to avoid showing it.